did provide Robert some background information regarding, how this all came about with the Keller Beach assessment and the requirements for a feasibility study. So if there's any questions on that tonight, I'll be more than happy to provide the background and documentation if requested. It's all public information. There was several letters, correspondences that went back and forth between the city and Baykeeper, regarding the Keller Beach sanitary sewer line. So I'll be more than happy to provide that to, any resident, public entity that requests it.
Thanks. We're thrilled to have you. Edie, let's keep Mary unmuted as well, because she's going to speak on behalf of Public Works at some point. Edie, are you listening in? Thanks. So we are going, Edie is logging in now. We are going to mute everybody.
Okay.
Because the questions were asked in advance, except for the folks from the city and the public relations firm, and Rod and myself, but I hope not to ask any questions. Rod has more expertise.
No.
It looks like Edie, I see her face, but surprisingly, Edie looking confused in front of a computer is highly uncommon.
That's usually my luck.
But I am available to answer any questions if they happen to come my way.
Okay, thank you, Philip.
Why don't you get everybody introduced so that we know what's going on?
I will do that.
Okay,
If you
good.
didn't ask me to, I would have done it anyhow.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so we have Philip Rosenthal, who's president of Neighborhood Council. Mary Phelps, hi Mary. Rod Satry. We worked together a long time ago. And then we also have Cesar Zupata. Is he in?
Mm-hmm.
The current status of the Keller Beach sewer line, and I won't call it anything other than that. I'm not going to give it any adjectives at this time. And the concept tonight is to make a presentation as to what's going on with the sewer line project that the city and Baykeepers had made an agreement to do something about it, and the moratorium to all development along the shoreline, actually from Golden Gate down.
Giving the presentation?
There's a public affairs group and they can introduce themselves, because I can't remember the name right off the bat. And anyhow, this is more of an informational now, but be aware that the former contract Coastal has bailed from the project. They were bought out, and the new Okay, so with that, oh, I'm finally connecting maybe. With that, I'm going to introduce Cesar. Here we go. And I can turn this one off because my other one's working. Okay, I'm going off of this one.
All right, thank you, Rod. Thank you everyone for joining. Cesar Cepeda, your council member in District 2, for those of you who might not know me. Rod summarized it there. Today is a discussion to get an update from Public Works on the project and sort of figuring out what the next steps will be. We have Ben here from Kern and West. He is going to be leading the meeting as well and telling us sort of next steps and how we're going to approach this. Don't want to call it a project. It's not a project yet, but how we're going to approach this thing moving forward and how we're going to communicate with the community, which is what's the most important piece of this meeting. Quick update. And many of you might remember back last year, we did put an agenda item and it was passed by the city council that any future consultants that are going to take a look at the Keller Beach sewer line will need to look at all available options. I know that was a really big concern before. The community felt that, and for truth there, that the previous consultant did not really look at all the options. They were very steadfast with one. So through that city council direction, any new consultant will have to look at all available options out there, including, but not limited to, keeping the sewer line where it is, moving the sewer line up to the street, or potentially not making any changes. So really looking at everything that's there and providing options for all, even if we think that the state or other agencies might not allow it. For example, keeping it where it is. Maybe that's going to be a big hurdle. Maybe they won't allow it. But we want to make sure that we get confirmation from all the agencies before we make that determination. And we don't want to just say we're not going to get the permit just because we think it's going to be difficult. So, and that is going to be in partnership with everyone there. With that there, I'll pass it over. And I also want to thank Philip as well for helping create this meeting. And for everyone else who's been involved. I don't know who else is in here. I just see some names here. Graham, Carolina. There's been several of you who have been very involved from the very beginning with this here. And I'm sorry if I'm leaving anybody out. There's a lot of people in the meeting today, so I haven't been able to scroll up and down the list yet. And also thanks to our public works team, Mary. Again, not sure who else is on here yet. Robert is on here, and then want to pass it over to Ben and to Robert, and they'll both be able to help answer some questions from the email that you received from the PRNC. We want to receive all the questions ahead of time so that we can make sure that we have some kind of answer, even if the answer is we don't know yet. But we want to receive it before so that we can have something for you today. And then if there's any other additional questions, we can take those back. And then being able to communicate that back to the PRNC and to the Keller Beach Working Group. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Ben and to Robert. Thank you all again for being part of this meeting.
Robert, did you want to go next, or do you want me to?
Sure. I will. Sorry, I'm having some issues there. So thank you for that introduction. Just for anybody who may not know me already, my name is Robert Armijo. I'm the Deputy Public Works Director and City Engineer for the City of Richmond. And this is one of our projects for the Water Resource Division. And I have with me today Ben Gettleman, who will have introduced himself in a little more detail. Excuse me, getting over a cold. So sorry about my clearing my throat. So we did send out answers to the questions. Hopefully everybody has had a chance to view those. I hope that answers those questions. I would like to introduce Ben now and also talk about, I would like to have him discuss, some of our ideas on how maybe we can communicate in the future so that everybody feels heard and that we can distribute information and have, civil dialogue on this project moving forward. So Ben, having said that, can you introduce yourself and a little bit about your firm and we'll go from there.
Yeah, of course. And hi, everyone. And thank you for having us at your meeting this evening. I'm joined by Veronica Cummings and Marlis Jean, also with Kearns and West, that are going to be supporting this process. And I could talk a little bit about what we do and how we work and some ideas around how we can help. And just a little bit of reframing, we are often referred as a public relations firm. That's not what we do and how we work. We work in collaboration and collaborative process. So we work as a third party. So we don't have skin in the game, as it were, in terms of what the outcome is. Our job is really focused on making sure the participants in a process feel like they're included and it's transparent, and that we essentially work for everyone. So we're working for the city, we're working for you, and we're really interested in understanding from you all what moving forward in the spirit of a reset, what a successful process would look like. How do you want to be engaged? How do you want to receive information? How do we stay in touch with each other? So if we need to make adjustments, we can do that. And we just want to be helpful, and we certainly are coming in here with our eyes wide open, knowing that there are some things to mend. And so it's going to take some time, but this is what we do. So we work on really complex projects all over California and the country, often involving regulatory processes, often involving conflict. And what we try to do is map everything out. And I think importantly, we try to overlay the discussion of that the community is having with the actual technical process. So I think that as we think about how you want to be involved and how you receive information, we also have to think about what is this process moving forward going to look like. And as a new consultant is onboarded, how do you want to be involved in that process? And how can we sort of make those two things integrated so it's not what we don't want is a technical process happening here and then a community discussion happening over here and them not talking to each other. So, and a couple other things, let's see, Veronica is a Richmond resident. I worked on the Richmond Greenway for years. This was a while ago, but really enjoyed working in Richmond. And so a good, pretty decent sense for generally how things work. But we appreciate that every community likes to be worked with and communicated with a little bit differently. And so we want to make sure we're being sensitive to what works for you all. And so that's something we're really looking forward and interested in learning more about. And Philip and I had a really good conversation earlier today. We really want to know what success looks like and how you all want to receive information and how we can really make this as transparent as possible. And I don't know if we'll have the opportunity to do that today. I mean, we'd love to start whenever you're ready. But I think before we lay out a plan for you all in terms of this is how we think a collaborative process could look like, we really want to hear from you all in terms of what success looks like, and then we can hopefully help develop a path to get there. So maybe I'll stop there, and if folks have questions, you're certainly welcome to ask those, but we really just wanted to do some listening today, and we're going to be working with you all in the future. So we just wanted to, put our names to faces, and you'll be hearing from us.
I'm going to jump in, even though this is Rod's meeting. And Ben, can you just discuss a few of the communication methods that we discussed in writing and this morning, such as postcards, and what the milestones, this was Caesar's conversation with me, what the milestones might be where, for example, a mailing would go out referring people to a website. I think that one of the things we discussed is the city, it appears, maybe not on purpose, to say, well, we posted it on our website, but the community didn't know that they were supposed to go there. And, most of us don't search the hundreds of pages of city website because we are trying to avoid, this meeting will go on 6 or 8 hours if we do it by having people ask you questions. So if we can follow that format of the questions we sent, I think we can answer most of those questions a little bit quicker. And also, Robert, the answers to the questions did not go out because we hope that we can check those off live in the meeting, which we will post on our YouTube channel, and then we can send out a written synopsis or link somebody to a written synopsis in the future. So we're hoping with Mary here, to be more specific, that we can check down that questions list as opposed to asking them again.
So, Philip, to respond to your question around milestones, and yes, we did talk about certainly hearing there's an interest in folks receiving mailers by, to their houses, and that's certainly an option. I think in terms of how that lines up with milestones, that's really a question that we have to, we really have to look at what the future process looks like in onboarding a new consultant, and really it's like, well, when would it make sense? Like, when will the city be ready to take input on this process? And so I can't answer that right now, but I think that's something we can work towards. I think something to keep in mind is, with finite resources, mailers are not cheap. And so I think that's an option. And I don't know exactly what's possible and what's not, but just something to think about is there a way to make it where a place where folks can go and get information? Maybe that's a website, maybe that's not. Maybe it's this meeting that I know that happens monthly, but just something to think about is every time a mailer goes out, that is part of the budget for engagement. So we don't want to use all of the money on that because we want to have the resources to host meetings and do other things that you all think are important. So I think it's a really important tool, and we'll want to look at all of them and really understand what's most important to you all. But yeah, certainly hearing that that's of interest to you all.
And Ben, if we need to add a little more for another 1 or 2 mailers, if that's the best that the community needs, I think that we can have that discussion to see. Because not everyone's always online, not everyone checks their email. I don't check my mailbox very often. The mailman comes and knocks on my door to tell me that my mailbox is full, and then I go check it. So I don't do that. I'm all about the email, but other people are not. So I think we want to make sure that we meet people where they are so that we can make sure that we're communicating how they want to be communicated. So I think we can have that conversation when we get there. Right, if we need to increase the budget, we can look to see what that might be if it need be.
Thanks. Caesar, you know, the city allows the neighborhood councils to mail out newsletters or postcards 4 times a year. And it costs, I think the last one cost $300. And that's to the 4,000 residents of Point Richmond, not the couple of hundred residents. So it doesn't have to be glossy. So I just wanted to put, and Rod and I talked about that expense earlier. So I just want to put that in your ear. We have a bulk mail permit and we have a printing department in the city. So
that's great to know.
Ben, any other thoughts, or Robert, any other thoughts? Should we read out some of the answers to the questions? I'm not sure.
Well, maybe just yeah. Let me just. I do want to. We'd like to leave this meeting with some sense of next steps, and we're trying to think about how do we. It doesn't sound like this is the right venue to get that input of how people want to be engaged, and sort of these questions we have that are really going to shape, you know, our recommendations around how best to do this and to make you all feel like you really have a meaningful role here. And so sometimes what we do is we'll work with like a subset of a neighborhood group that's interested in helping us craft the engagement approach. So that's an option. If you all would like to identify a few people we can work with, that might be really helpful. Sometimes we do surveys, but that's a little bit more of a lift for everyone. But I think what we want to do is, you know, coming out of this meeting, we want to have a sort of some idea of how can we get that input. And then after having that input, what we'd like to do is come back to this group and say, all right, we've worked with, you know, whomever, and this is what we're thinking. And hopefully by then there's a little bit more information around the timeline for the sort of the next phase, and we can kind of look at how would that be overlaid. And so when would be like the time when we're ready to, you know, for you all to interface with a new technical consultant, for example. So something to think about. We can coordinate with either Philip or Rod afterwards, but we really hope that we can come out of this meeting with a clear next step. So, you know, we have someone we can work with and, you know, and iterate on, that we're not doing this in an echo chamber.
Ben, I think, and if I can introduce here some of the individuals that were involved prior to coming together with the PRNC was Graham and Carolina. I see her, she's not on the little screens here, but she is on. So maybe they might be too, and then Philip, and then maybe the PRNC's group all together. Yeah. If everyone is okay with having those individuals who were involved from the very beginning be the ones that can help out.
I'm happy. So this is Carolina. I think, and I'm happy to stay involved, and we can form a group. I would think that it probably makes sense for the PRNC and the LUDRC to also be more involved in this, so they can represent the interests of the entire community and neighborhood, and so we're not kind of handpicking a handful of residents. I think if there is need for resident input, I'm happy to continue to be involved, and I'm sure others in our initial working group would be too. But I think we need involvement from the PRNC and LUDRC here primarily.
The PRNC already has a monthly update, which is like a 1-minute update that whoever spoke to Public Works last chimes in. Sometimes it's Charmaine Tyler, who's on the LUDRC. And we're always willing to expand. We're always willing to call a special meeting or publicize one that the city does. Anything that I've sent forward so far, I want to clarify, doesn't come from me. It comes from the Keller Beach group of residents. So I just kept listening to those questions and those comments and repeating what I heard. So that's where that is. There's not that many ways to communicate. We're not going to ask you to do skywriting or, smoke signals or something.
Okay, we'd have to train up on that. And just to clarify, the LUDRC, that's the Land Use Design Review Committee, is that right?
Mm-hmm. And that's a subcommittee of the PRNC.
Got it.
And Rod didn't really introduce himself, as he was a little shy and humble. He has a huge engineering background, and I was hoping he would point that out. So he knows the vocabulary and he understands the process and has worked with the city on major projects. So that's why we're blessed to have him.
Okay, well, that's really helpful. I think we have some folks we can follow up with then, and then what I would suggest is we try to get something scheduled, whether it's at a standing meeting or something that we can schedule just a one-off to do that soon. And we basically would come with some open-ended questions and just try to get a sense for what that's going to look like. And then I think we'll know and look to others to let us know when it makes sense to come back to a bigger group. And again, I do think as the information comes in around the technical work, we got to make sure that these things are connected. So that's something we'll be working on.
Thanks so much, Ben. Hey, Robert, do you want to punch out some of your answers to those questions while we have Mary here to maybe flesh out if the two of you could work together to go down that list? Because that's kind of what we promised, because you asked us to limit the questions. So we might have time. Hopefully, I see Graham has his hands up to flesh out a few questions, but this meeting definitely needs to, wind up in an hour or less. So hopefully we'll have a chance to just run down the list you sent me. Robert? Edie, is Robert blocked?
Robert was unmuted and then muted himself, and once he did
there
that,
he is.
he needed to be re-invited.
Yeah, I kept trying to hit the mute button and it wouldn't let me unmute. So sorry about that. First of all, Ben, did you get some of the feedback that you needed, or concerning communications and next steps before we move on, or did you still have follow-on questions or comments?
Ben might not be able to unmute himself either.
I'm sorry, who was the question to?
Ben Gettleman.
Ben. All right, yeah. Just so you know, if you are speaking and you are unmuted, once you mute, you are locked out, and I have to unmute you. Sorry that this is being a little bit persnickety that way, but otherwise it will just be too many feedback and voices and things like that.
Thank you, Edie. And yeah, I think for the purposes of this evening, we got what we needed. I really wanted to make sure we had a clear next step. And I do think that getting that, having a little bit more of a sort of roll up our sleeves and have a discussion around what success looks like, that's the next step that is really helpful for us. So I think we have some folks identified, and we might lean on you a little bit, Rod or Philip, just to get that contact information, and then we can take it from there. But I think we're in good shape.
Phil, can I ask a question? A couple of questions?
Let's go for it, Graham, but we do want to give Robert time to work down his punch list.
Yeah, okay. Just a couple of things. I'd just like to clarify, which is not clear from the answers to our questions, was that are we now back at the beginning again? We're starting all over again with a new set of consultants, engineers to reevaluate the project at all levels, including all options. Secondly, what we want to know is how you are going to keep us as the stakeholders involved in this. This is very important. And this is one of the major issues that we had, that under Coastland and the lady who was the PR person there, this was just dropped on us. One option, that's it, take it or leave it. We don't want that to happen again. We want to be involved and be able to provide input as stakeholders into this project. And thirdly, we would like to have regular updates. And I think, as Phil has said that we do have a monthly item on the PRNC agenda for this. And all we need basically is a 1 or 2 minute answer from the Public Works Department or from you, Ben, saying this is the status, something has changed or something that hasn't changed, and we will keep you posted, rather than sitting here for 15 months being told nothing.
Thank you, Graham. And I think that Ben answered the second question and kind of the third, which is that they are going to engage in this communication. So now we can maybe turn this back over to Robert and Mary to run down their list a little bit, because I really want to get to what Robert knows. And he's been very transparent about what he doesn't know yet. So, and Mary knows a lot of the background. So then we can go back after Robert's had a chance to run down his punch list. And if we have time, Mary might be a little more specific about what happened in the past. We all want to move forward. And I think that's important.
Okay. So for the first question, has Coastland submitted a final report? Sorry about my throat clearing. Has Coastland submitted a final report which the city has approved? Coastland has withdrawn from working with the city. They submitted their work, which was about 50% complete. There is no final report. Due to the nature of how consultants work, this partial work is not going to be very helpful to the next consultant that we engage with. So we are essentially starting from scratch. This project will be a restart, basically. This means that we need to first find a new consultant. Question number 2, what, if anything, did the city learn from the report if submitted? We didn't receive a final report, and so we can't really answer that question. What next steps does the city propose to take in respect to the KDBS sewer study? Another feasibility study, design study? As I mentioned before, the cities will have to issue a new RFP or request for proposal to select a new engineer of record. We hope to receive a robust response. Once the study is complete, the project will progress to preliminary design, then final design, bidding, and then ultimately construction. Unfortunately, we don't have a timeline yet, and the project is currently delayed by over a year due to the issue that we've been talking about. Question number 4, will this step be considering alternate solutions or just one as the focus of the Coastland study? We will ask our new consultant to review multiple options, including the possibility of repairing the pipeline in place. However, based on prior assessment by staff and previous consultants, repairing in place is unlikely due to cost, environmental, and regulatory concerns. Question number 5, can we be assured the repair or partial repair, possibly along with replacement of parts of the existing sewer line, be among the alternatives considered? Yes, the city intends to study that option. Question number 6, can we be assured the future activities will go out to open bidding unlike the Coastland case? Engineers are not selected by open bidding. Engineers are selected based on their qualifications. The staff who made the initial selection are no longer employed with the city, so we cannot elaborate on that decision. It is unfortunate that Coastland withdrew as they were a qualified firm. Once the project is designed, it will be bid out according to the city's procurement process, which again, I mentioned was an RFP, a request for proposal process. We'll be asking engineers to provide proposals. Can we be assured, so this is question number 7, can we be assured that the terms of reference for these studies will include attention to social, resident impact and environmental impacts? We need to answer, we intend to consider as many impacts as feasible, including environmental, constructability, cost, and regulatory concerns. Question number 8, can we be assured that the residents who will be directly affected will be able to participate throughout the process in the implementation of this study? For example, will you be holding public meetings to provide information and obtain feedback? The judgment of the ultimate design rests with the city. This meeting aims to focus on future communications and how they will be handled to ensure the city receives feedback, but also the community receives information and that all communications remain professional and civil. Once again, as Philip mentioned, and also as we discussed previously, that's why we are engaging with Kearns and West to help us with communication and community engagement. Question number 9, what funding does the city currently have or expect to have for both pre-implementation studies and actual construction activities? This project, the answer is this project is likely to be funded from the wastewater fund, so the enterprise fund, funds that ratepayers pay to the city. Question number 10, what is the timeline anticipated by the city for completion of studies and initiation of actual construction activities? We don't have a timeline at the moment. Once we secure the services of a new engineering consultant, we may be able to construct a timeline. Sorry, I got to clear my throat again. Question number 11. What, if any, pressure is Baykeeper presently exerting on the city in connection with the KBS problem? Their lawsuits have been ongoing for 10 plus years. So, you know, we can have Mary provide a little bit more information, but in short, we have to keep in mind that Baykeeper is an active advocate for environmental issues. It's going to be critical that the city address this pipeline in an environmentally responsible manner to avoid litigation, and also because, you know, environmental protection is also the right thing to do. Question number 12, will the city consider how other cities with similar sewage challenges, especially the San Francisco Bay, have handled the upgrade and replacement? The answer, the city will employ responsible engineering principles to address this pipeline issue. While we will learn from other cities' experiences, this pipeline has unique characteristics that will be studied on its own merits. Question number 13, what is the current plan for maintenance and repair of the existing sewer line from today until any new construction is completed? Is there a plan for regular maintenance? What is the current plan for maintenance and repair of the existing sewer line from today until any new construction is completed? Is there a plan for regular maintenance? What exactly will be considered necessary in terms of leak repair if and when the line further disintegrates? How is it being monitored? How will this be considered as part of the larger decision-making process? There's currently no maintenance being performed on the Keller Beach line due to the accessibility and potential to cause further degradation of the line. This is based on several factors. Accessibility, the line can only be accessed at low tide. Equipment should be has to be floated in by barge or a boat or something of that nature. Breaking the seals on the manhole for access. Manholes are currently sealed to prevent infiltration of seawater and exfiltration of wastewater. Maintenance would require breaking and resealing these seals, which is an extremely costly process. Degradation from cleaning. Each cleaning degrades the line further due to its current condition. Cost effectiveness. Replacing only a portion of the line would not be cost effective and would further damage the remaining segments due to their age and condition. The city's current schedule is to clean sanitary sewer line once every 4 years. The Keller Beach was cleaned as much as physically accessible in 2022 by a city-paid contractor. Currently, there is no method of leak testing that can be performed on the line. The East Bay Regional Parks District performs regular biological testing of the area to ensure the water is safe for public use. And then for the final question, answer to the final question, the question is a bit broad. All the relevant information, including current challenges and constraints, will be considered in the decision-making process to ensure a comprehensive and responsible approach to this feasibility study. So those are all the questions and answers that we have provided to the neighborhood council.
Thanks. I've sent that forward to Graham, who I will ask to forward the really sincere email from Robert, thank you, to his group. And then if anyone is not on that email, which I would encourage you to be, because these are your direct neighbors, you can certainly email me at the link that was provided with the invitation. And I will just, I think that Robert made it clear that that was intended to go out publicly. I'll just forward that email. We're not really going to send it out. We don't really have a way to send it out to everybody. I don't want to forward a city email to the 5 on our mailing list, but I'm happy to forward it one-on-one, and there's nothing secretive that you can't share. Rod?
I'm here.
Hey, you and I had a conversation earlier, and you were mentioning something about the wastewater budgeting. Did you want to comment on that or hold off?
Well, that's one question is, and I think Robert has answered it, that it will be funded from the wastewater funds that are generated on our sewer tax. But I don't want us throwing money away needlessly. I'm sure you are the same way. And Robert, we don't blame you for what happened before you got there. God help you. But the other thing is I have spent a good third of my career as an environmental consultant. And one of the people I've been talking to is the consultant to baykeepers regarding this project. And she informed me that baykeepers has admitted there's never been actually any contamination coming from the line that's in underwater. That is the contamination was upstream of that major sewer line. And in fact, they never found any contamination along the bay. So anybody that's worried about that, this was a sewer upstream, which would mean the main that runs underneath the street or somebody's lateral that was dragged into it. And then Veolia worked on it, which is our contract wastewater treatment firm for the sewage treatment plant on Canal. And by that action, East Bay, the baykeepers said, well, I guess now that you worked on that, we're going to link that to the line in the water. But there's a lot more to it. And people have to realize that before 1955, there was no wastewater treatment plant in the city of Richmond. And I don't know where all the people whose houses were there before 1955 discharged, but I can make a guess, and I'm sure the rest of you can also. But so the bottom line is there's a lot of issues on this, and I think the line actually was well built in the 50s. And I think the only problem is the people that did the investigation couldn't circle around Cypress Point. They stopped because their method of investigation didn't do bend turns such as that one. And I'm open to questions. I'm not going to go on mute so I can talk again.
Yeah, thanks, Rod. And Mary, did you capture anything that Rod said that you'd like to respond to? For those of you who don't know Mary, she's been working on all of these projects, can I say safely, for decades?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
so we're all afraid she's going to retire and there'll be no one to call.
Yeah, I've been with the city since 1991, December of 1991. And I was with the city when they settled the first agreement with Baykeeper in 2006. And that was due to the city not being able to control this number of sanitary sewer overflows that were occurring from the sanitary sewer collection system. We were not able to meet the target of reducing the number of sanitary sewer overflows. At that time, this had nothing to do with the Keller Beach sanitary sewer line. I want to make that clear. This was the city as a whole. So in 2018, Baykeeper renegotiated an additional settlement agreement that basically said that we had to do what's called a risk assessment analysis annually of our entire collection system. And so what that involves is basically rating our entire collection system based on NASCO standards, which is the rating system that is established, universally, rating sewer pipes from 1 to 5. 1 being basically the line is perfectly good, 5 basically meaning imminent failure. And we turn this report into Baykeeper annually. When Baykeeper looked at the report, they said, okay, we understand this is what you're going to do. You got to replace. And so Baykeeper came back and said, you will replace a minimum of 2 miles of pipeline over the next 10 years. So basically we had to replace, 10 miles of sewer line. And we basically started budgeting for that. Well, then when Baykeeper looked at the report, they said, well, what about the Keller Beach sewer line? That's not a force main. When are you going to take a look at that? We made statements to the effect of, saying, well, it's not safe. It's not environmentally sound. It's not a good idea. And Baykeeper came back and said, well, Baykeeper doesn't agree with your summation. We want you to inspect that line. It's part of your collection system. We need to know the integrity of that line. That was back in February of 2020. So the city put together, a contract, a request for, contractors to find a way to clean and CCTV that line. So we hired a contractor to basically clean and CCTV the line. The line was so corroded, it's cast iron. As Mr. Satry stated, it's been in the bay for half a century, probably longer, and it was corroded, extremely badly. So they basically had to cut the line with chains to get all the corrosion, just so they could get their cameras through it. So hopefully your sewage is flowing much more freely now that it's been cleaned somewhat. But there was also a lot of debris and sand in that line. We're hoping that it's coming more from the beach laterals than it is from the actual wave intrusion, but that could not be determined from the analysis report that we got. We could see that there was some cracks in the line, but it looked like the line was fairly sealed, and we could actually not see any massive intrusion in the report that we saw. So we went back to Baykeeper and we said, okay, we've done an assessment of the line. This is what it looks like. Baykeeper came back and said, well, we're still not satisfied. We need to know what is your, a proposal to have this line either repaired, rehabilitated, replaced, or relocated. And so we sat there and we came back and said, well, this is going to be an astronomical project. We need more time to figure out what we could do. And that's when the city decided to, investigate. And we said, well, what we'll do is a feasibility study. So the city went out and hired Coastland to do a feasibility study to determine, what the options would be. We did approach the State Water Quality Control Board and said, would it be feasible for us to replace in kind at that point? The State Water Board was not really amenable at that point. We spoke to Robert Schlipp and he said, we're not happy with the line being in the bay at all. So for us to give you the proper permits to replace that line as it is in the bay, most likely that's not going to happen. You're going to have to come up with it. And we talked about slip lining the line, but there are so many laterals that are connected to that may not be feasible. So that's when Coastland basically came back, and with the option, they said, well, we're going to relocate it. So that's how that all came about. It was unfortunate with the way things happened that the residents felt they were not being included. That was never the city's intent to exclude the residents. It just sort of snowballed that way. It was at that time, I want to say, above my pay grade because I was not involved. I was kind of the low man, and I was like trying to get things done as far as Baykeeper reporting purposes. And so then unfortunately, poor Daniel, Robert, Jeff, and myself are stuck with the fallout from that. So I am, I'm really happy with the fact that Robert, Daniel, Jeff, and myself are trying to work with the residents to determine what is the best way to go about this. But no matter what solution we come up with, it's going to be extremely costly, and it's going to take several years to figure out the budgeting for this project. We don't know if it's going to involve lift stations. We don't know if it's going to involve slip lining. We don't know what kind of permits are going to be involved. We've also been meeting quite regularly with council members of PETA, to discuss what the options are. So I'm very happy that we're having these meetings. I have no problem working with Robert and Kearns and West to provide you monthly updates as requested, so on and so forth. I did write down the questions that Mr. Graham had regarding, are we starting back at the beginning? And I believe the answer is yes. And then, how do you plan to involve the residents? That's why we're here tonight. And then regular updates, absolutely. So hopefully I have addressed all your concerns. Please let me know if you have any additional questions.
Thank you, Mary.
No problem.
So I'm getting a lot of emails and texts, and I just want to clarify about future communications. I think it's quite clear that Ben will be setting up some type of clearinghouse for us. So as this progresses, there's going to be a place to go for information. In the meantime, it's us. But it looks like, down the line, there'll be communications releases. So I hear loud and clear that both the city and Kearns and West is going to make sure that we're not just gossiping amongst ourselves anymore, that we'll have an open communication. And Kearns and West is kind of famous for doing this well. So I'm really glad to have them on the job. From my understanding of how well their company functions. And I think that we've discussed it 100 times, but I do want to say it out loud. Taxpayers are upset and we're angry, but Robert and Daniel stepped into a real mess, and the taxpayers of this community know that. And they are untangling 1,000 projects like this, literally. And so, I just want to make sure people remember that it's not an easy job to step in and try to figure out what's going on. So we're grateful for that, and again for Mary for being kind of the thread that holds this together. Rod, did you have any comments or questions that you'd like to throw out?
Well, I know we got to start from scratch. Let's keep us in the loop. And as far as the regulatory world of sewer lines that have already been established in the bay, there are caveats that allow those types of installations, even though maybe somebody wouldn't have done it from scratch now, but because it's there, it's established, and you can actually, and I've pointed this out to former engineering managers, Robert, so you don't probably have that. I'll dig up some of my references, but we need to have some really hard negotiations with both baykeepers and the Regional Water Quality Control Board, which is the lead agency for that. And I see Graham has his hand up, so Eddie, maybe you can unmute Graham.
While Edie unmutes Graham, I'd like to throw a question at Mary. The supervillain in our neighborhood, like a Batman villain, is Veolia. And it kind of sounds like whatever they did might have made things worse. What level of responsibility does Veolia hold? Is that a question you can briefly touch on, or is it just a mess? That question.
I wouldn't say that it's a mess. Veolia did not have the expertise to clean any, sanitary sewer lines in the bay. The agreement that the city currently has with Veolia is that they will clean the entire collection system once every 4 years. They will CCTV, which is closed circuit televised, inspect the line once every 10 years. And so when we kept pushing, for them to, basically fulfill the terms of the agreement, they came back and they says, well, we can't do that because we don't have the equipment or the wherewithal to do that, which is also in the agreement. It says the city will provide the necessary equipment for them to do their jobs. So, you know, there was a caveat in the contract. We went, okay, well, they kind of have us dead to right on that one. So that's why we had to hire a contractor to do it. And, you know, it was a bit of a mess, but we did get very good CCTV. We have the videos for that. So we actually now, for the first time, and like I said, I've been with the city over 30 years, can actually see the condition of the Keller Beach line, which we have never had before. So that was a big plus for us. So, and I am not a fan of Baykeeper by any stretch of the imagination. They are, you know, my Achilles heel. Every time I turn around, I'm getting another letter from them. And it's like, okay, now what do they want to see? Now, and every report that we submit, there's usually comments that come back that they say, okay, well, we see that you did this, this, and this. Now we want this, this, and this. And because we're under a settlement agreement, you know, we kind of have to abide by it. The one, if there is one good thing that has come from Baykeeper, they have basically kept the state water board regulatory agencies from fining us for the many sanitary sewer flows that we have had, which so, you know, that is one good thing, if that could be said.
Okay. Phil, may I?
Go for it, Graham.
Yeah, Phil, well, first of all, I'd like to thank Mary for specifically answering the questions we've been posed. It's refreshing to have that. 2 months ago, Phil, we had Veolia attend a PRNC meeting, and all they ever did was evade the questions that came up. So, Mary, thank you very much for doing that, and please continue to be involved. Now,
well, Graham, may I say, first of all, Robert actually answered the questions. I only provided some oversight. So I want to be clear that Robert was actually the one that addressed the questions. So
Robert,
I'd like to give credit where credit is due.
Robert, Mary, you're a great team. Thank you.
Okay.
Now, what I would like to know, we do have some further questions on the answers that were posed to our 13 questions. Who can we write to try and get a bit more clarification?
I'm going to let Robert respond to that.
I would like to kind of put an end, you know, to just be honest with you, that the questions we're going to have to restart. There's really not a lot of information. You know, we have to find a new consultant. So, but you know, if it's a really necessary question, then sure. But I would prefer that we get, you know, focus in on working with Kearns and West to start facilitating our meetings so that you can get regular updates as the new progress progresses. When we do get a new consultant, we'll have a lot of opportunities to ask them questions. They can get into the details of schedules and, you know, what we know about regulations. All those questions I think can be answered, but you know, I think, you know, the more we start getting into these questions, the more speculative we're going to get. So I'd prefer to try to look forward than looking back and focusing on the past. I'd like to have us focus in on the future and how we're going to work on communications and
Thanks, Graham. And for the purpose of this meeting, I do feel that Robert and Ben have done a good job at answering the questions that they were given. Daniel Chavarria had his hand up. He is, for those of you who don't know, the Public Works Director. And then we have to wrap this meeting up. We have a total of 3 more minutes. Or as long as Daniel needs. So thanks for being here, Daniel. I know how busy you are.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. My name is Daniel Chavarria. I'm the Public Works Director. I've been listening to the meeting for the entire time. It's just that I was driving, so I couldn't. I didn't want to put my camera or anything like that. But I've been listening to everything you have said. I just want to reassure that all staff in Public Works, we understand how can say controversial this process has been. I wanna be very careful to call it a project because it's not a project yet. We're talking about a feasibility study that is going to lead to a project. What that project is going to look like is what we're going to find out after the feasibility study. So the first phase is to hire a consultant that is gonna help us analyze the different options we have. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? What are the costs? What are the impacts, not only to the community, but to the environment? What are the challenges that we're gonna face? Different things. And definitely from the previous process, it seems that that question was not answered, and definitely the community is not satisfied with that process. But that process is over. Now we are.
Did we lose Daniel?
It looks like we lost Daniel.
Okay, so I'm gonna say something and then I'll ask Rod to wrap the meeting up. I wanted to, Chuck, I don't know what's going on.
Interesting.
Something strange happened with Chuck's screen sharing. Somebody hit the wrong button. So anyway, so I'm getting all these emails and texts still. The answer is whatever your concerns are, we're years away and Ben is on it. Okay. I'll forward any of those questions, Ben, and Public Works can glance at the chat and see specifically what people are concerned with. But is everybody clear that there's going to be communication moving forward? Please.
Yes.
Okay. And it will be better. It will not be perfect because nothing is. And then Rod, if you'll wrap this up, I would appreciate it. Once again, thank you to Public Works people who are frazzled beyond belief. And thanks for Cesar, yeah, for being
I was
here.
gonna say Daniel rejoined again. I don't know, if Daniel, you got cut off there. I don't know if you were done saying what you were gonna say, or do you have anything else maybe?
Only the last thing that I was gonna say, have a nice evening.
Thank you, Daniel.
Of course, yes. Have a good evening.
Well, thank everybody for allowing this to become a phoenix and rise again. And this time we'll get in the air and fly. But the neighborhood council, the land use design review committee, Keller Beach Sanitary Sewer Group are all combined to work with you. And we're here to help. And there's a lot of people in our organization that have a background that are not just, you know, whining neighbors. We want to make this successful and help you. So, and thank you, Cesar, for putting this on too.
Welcome. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for your patience as we're hitting the reset button. But it's a good thing that we're hitting the reset button because we're going to start with the new Public Works team, and we're going to start with the right guidance from the community as well. Thank you, everyone, for your time this evening.
Have a safe evening, everyone.
Thank you, Councilman. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.